All right, time for week 8 recap, starting with the results from Fantrax last week. We've got a narrow win for myself over French, but it was really hotly contested all week. French was winning for a lot of the week. Maffey beats Frank 9-6-1. Maffey now crept up to number 3 in VTL. So, yeah, it looks like he's the number 3. Dubsy Dimes with a big, much needed win over Casey, who continues to slide. That's 4 losses in a row for Casey to match the 4 wins in a row that we had at the beginning of the season. So I know that's a bummer. Brad with an 11-5 win over Alex. I will tell you that is not really reflect in the power rankings this week, but a big win for Brad, who, just like everyone, is still alive. Brad is not out of it yet. 11-5 does a lot of good for him in the standings. Bo with a big week, beating Corey, who is now suffering from, I think, our first ever recap video logo curse. So my bad for putting you on the logo last week because Bo Bo did not like that. And Nate and Jeremiah tied at 8-8. I believe Jeremiah was in the lead for a large part of this week, so Nate just scraping what he can to tie it up. Here's the updated look at the standings. Nate at the top by himself, 4 games ahead of me. I'm 3 games ahead of Frank. And so the three of us look like we're in the contention for the bye if you're talking Fantrax standings. But Frank's also kind of trending the wrong direction right now. Matthew with a big win this week creeps up to 4. Alex and Casey round out the top 6. And then insanely packed Bo, Brad, Corey, French, JW, and Jeremiah separated by 6.5 games. I don't think, in fact, I basically think I can say, I know we have never seen the bottom 6 so tightly packed. And knowing that there isn't a single team that's just, you are by far the worst. Um, I mean, it just speaks to our level of competition. I'm really pumped about it. Um, I guess we could talk win streaks real quick. Nate has not lost in 5 weeks, so when you see this T1, it means at least one of those results was a tie. But no losses for Nate in the last 5 weeks. I have won 4 in a row. Frank with a loss. Matthew with 1 win. Alex has won 3 in a row. Casey's slide continues, longest losing streak in the league. Bo won. Corey lost. JW won. French lost. All of that reversed from what they did last week. Brad's so yeah, I had this wrong. I had this wrong. He's actually won one, and Alex has lost one. So yeah, I thought that that was flipped for whatever reason. So a lot of people that lost last week won this week, and vice versa. Jeremiah technically has not won in 2 weeks, although one of those was a tie. So not a lot of streaks going right now. Let's look at DTL and luck. So Nate and I are very close at the top, separated by less than 1% in total VTL. Again, we're kind of doing it in opposite ways, if you will, although we're both good at both, a little bit better at one side of the ball in particular. Then there's a pretty big gap. Matthew, Frank, Alex, and Corey separated by like two, no, like one, about 1.5%. Um, Three of them are doing it almost the exact same way. Matthew, Alex, and Corey all have very close pitching and batting VTLs. Frank is basically a little bit better than average on both, but not much. And that's been sliding. So it's a little bit concerning for Frank right now. Corey, or excuse me, Casey is kind of the bridge between this top group, which looks playoff bound, and then the bottom group, which are going to have to fight for playoff spot or potentially just get the highest seed possible for Otani or other considerations. But yeah, Casey for the second week in a row now, below 50% total VTL for the season on both sides of the ball. 4 losses in a row doesn't help. Um, Looks like, he just needs to get hot or make a move to join that top group again. And then Bo, JW, French, Brad, and Jeremiah separated by less than 0.75 VTL. 5 teams at the bottom. Can't stress enough how unique that is. There's always a team that is the worst with a VTL way down there. I mean, this VTL isn't even red. Like the worst in the league is 46.16 Jeremiah, and it's not even red at all. Um, that's so unusual. I can guarantee you this is the best worst VTL through 8 weeks by a mile, by a mile. So yeah, there's barely a single team that's like significantly worse than average. The fact that number two or number three, all the way down to number 12, is separated by 6%, less than 6%. Insane. Totally, totally still open to anybody. Nate and myself have a little bit of a head start towards the buys, but yeah, this is just a wide open season. I'm really enjoying that. We look at our opponent VTL, see who's been lucky, who's been unlucky. Frank continues to be lucky. This week he faced Matthew, who's about a 60% VTL week, so that's not lucky. But when you think the worst team in our league has a 46.16 VTL, on average, Frank plays 41.9% VTL. That means Frank is catching guys consistently worse, like over 5% worse than average. Just so lucky. And he's ridden that to a lot of wins, despite a VTL that now does not look anywhere um, super impressive. I mean, it's still a good number, but yeah, I think Frank has been super lucky. Bo, to be in the standings where he is, I think he's seventh, also has been quite fortunate, at least in terms of his pitching. He's faced 38.5% pitching VTL against him. That's quite fortunate. And Jeremiah, no longer the most unlucky team. That is now Corey, who passes him by about a 0.5%. Corey has faced, on average, 62.3% offensive VTL against him. A lot of that was because Bo's offense was insane. The 14th best offense we have ever seen out of nowhere. Also, if you're curious who the last uh, place VTL team on offense is, Bo, even with the 14th best week of all time. So pretty weird and very unlucky, I would say, for Corey. I mean, maybe both offenses about to spike, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. It's literally the worst VTL. So Corey, tough luck, Madden curse, if you will, except it's the logo curse. My bad. Jeremiah is still very unlucky as well. Other than that, not a lot of super interesting numbers here. Let's go down to a fully written out positives and negatives section. I did this last night. Haven't done this all season. So I know you can read these yourself, but I put a lot of work into them, so I'm going to read them. Here are our tiers. We have Nate at the top, the positive spin. You can chalk week 8 up as an outlier. Still the league's top BTL team, Nate is in prime position to pursue back-to-back titles. I'm curious if he will deal Otani, Witt, and Pablo Lopez to try to lock in more value for the future while still going for it. If there was a team that was going to be in first but still decide to sell strategically to try to build for the future, it would be Nate. So I think that that is certainly possible. Negative spin. Week 8 was the worst of the season for Nate at 39.2% VTL. In fact, you'd have to go back to week 16 of 2023 to find a time Nate has had that low of a VTL, which is a testament to the quality of the franchise. It's not exactly a huge negative spin. But yeah, we've seen some holes. It's not like we have a super team in this season so far. So Nate is number one, but he's not infallible. My positive spin over the last 5 weeks, Justin has averaged 56.19% VTL. That doesn't feel like an elite number. It's actually better than anybody else over that stretch. The batting and pitching are both good. Looks like a for sure playoff team. However, negative spin. After a blistering start, 72.92% VTL through weeks 1 through 3, the pitching's really cooled off to the tune of 48.86% VTL from weeks 4 to 8. Feels odd with Skeens, Crochet, Reagan, Strider, and Ray on the staff, but something to watch. So here's where I'll probably come under fire after Brad beats Alex this week. I have Alex at number 3 in the power rankings. I feel like the ceiling is so high, and we've seen a lot of good performance from Alex lately. So here's the positive spin for Alex. If you throw out weeks 1 and 2, where Alex struggled mightily, his 56.1% VTL would be just 0.33 VTL behind Justin for the best mark in the league. So last 6 weeks, Alex is second in VTL, very close to first. The upside is massive, and he's had top 3 VTL weeks 4 of the last 6 weeks. The negative is that the batting is what is keeping Alex out of Tier A so far in 2025. The pitching has climbed up to number 1 after week 7, so the only real question is, will the bats show up that week or not? If the bats get hot, it feels like there's championship upside here. That's not exactly a negative take, but it's batting hasn't been great. Maffey, positive spin. He performed well, 59.2% VTL to beat Frank, to kick off a brutal stretch in the schedule where he will face Frank, then Nate, then Alex. Third in VTL and fourth in the standings, Maffey looks like a solid bet to make the playoffs in 2025. In the negative, it's nitpicky for sure, but I still question the ceiling a little bit. If you take each team's best pitching week and each team's best batting week and add them together, Maffey's best week would rank 9th. The top 3 are Nate, Justin, and Frank. So yeah, it just doesn't know. I don't. He had a really good week 1. That was his best pitching and his best batting week to date. But other teams have had higher batting and higher pitching at some point, and so like you could dream up a week where 8 teams have a higher ceiling than Maffey. It's nitpicky, like I said, but for Frank's luck finally ran out. Luckiest team this year by a mile, with a total opponent VTL of 41.9. Frank has been collecting wins despite a VTL that has been in decline. Frank should be thrilled to be just 3 games back of a bye. So 5 weeks ago, Frank was in a tier all by himself at the top of the power rankings. He forced my hand with a VTL nearly 4% higher than anybody else's. Since then, we've seen 4 straight 47% VTL or less weeks, and he has dropped his total VTL each week over that 4-week stretch. So trending the wrong direction. Corey narrowly trails Nate for the best VTL in the league over the last 4 weeks. Of course, a 73.86% VTL week really helps, which was last week. Having seen the ceiling, I could see Corey posing serious upset risk in the playoffs if he makes it. And the negative, the recap video logo curse struck Corey this week as he dropped nearly 30% VTL from his big week 7 in the loss to Bo, who did have a great week, to be fair. Corey now has the worst luck in the league by VTL, 56.5%. Tier C, calling Otani Watch. I don't think I said the name of Tier B. Can't tell if anyone is good, but I guess I'll predict that you make the playoffs. That's my Tier B. So let's go to Tier C, Otani Watch. It's just Casey. There is still hope for Casey to break through into the playoffs for the first time in 2025. We've seen the VTL support that at times this season. Right now, it looks like there are more moves needed to elevate into contention, though. The negative is, with the 4-game losing streak to match the season-opening 4-game winning streak, the playoff waters look much more murky than they did 1 month ago. There's time left. I could see Casey going the buy or sell route. Time will tell. And then Tier D, hotly contested and separated by an amazing 0.68 VTL, but I don't currently see anyone making the playoffs. I have Jeremiah at the top of this, despite being technically the lowest in the VTL. We're talking a difference of 0.68 VTL. I mean, these guys are all the same. So the positive for Jeremiah, pitching VTL is on the rise, having increased 4 weeks in a row. That said, I would sure hope it could increase many weeks in a row when that 4 weeks starts at 16.6% VTL. Still crazy how low that is. If he was just a 45% pitching team, then the playoffs would be in reach. The negative is the pitching has anchored him down to the point where even my optimistic outlook has a hard time seeing him as a good bet for the playoffs, let alone a title contender. The deadline could change it all, though, if he wants to buy. Bo just put up the 116th best week of all time in a shellacking of Corey It was the 14th highest offensive VTL we've ever seen, and it came from the league's worst offense. Crazy, but true. Even after this nearly 7% jump in offensive VTL, still technically the lowest rated offense. Bo has ridden two big performances of 69% VTL plus and the second best luck to the seventh place seed in the standings. Hasn't been consistent at all, so I'm not anticipating a lot of future success, but Bo does have a nice ceiling. For JW, with the best VTL output of his season so far, he rode a 66.4% VTL to pick up a much needed 10-5-1 win versus Casey. The batting erupted for 74.4% VTL, and you could hear JW shout, "It's about time," as his voice rings out through the countryside. That was my note. I'm not sold everything's fixed or anything with JW, but if we see 2 more weeks of 50% batting with a total pitching without a total pitching collapse, I think you'd have to see him rise at the power rankings. Offense, the talent there still looks like it should be good on paper. French, are you still a model of consistency if you're always a little worse than average? French has not dipped below 40% VTL once, but he has also not exceeded 51.5%. It's not terrible, but if you can't get above 50%, you're not going to make the playoffs. So something's got to change. I do think injuries have played as big of a role for French's season as anybody's team. The staff came into the year looking good on paper. I think I had it as like a top four team unofficially in my kind of like just mental rankings. And in reality, the pitching's only cleared 50% VTL once. And Brad, it feels weird to call Brad the worst team in the league, but the nature of our hyper competitive league in 2025 is that someone with a decent VTL still has to be ranked 12th. 46.2% VTL is not horrible, just to be clear. For Brad, there isn't much to get excited about right now. Despite being eighth in the standings, he's 4 games out from last, so it's not like he's set himself apart. The 3 game losing streak pushed him over the edge to be 12th this time around. So I don't know if that was fun or not for me to just read, but go check out the recap if you didn't listen to me say all that. Um, yeah, it's fun. It's fun right now. Seeing all the competition, I think we're in a really good place, and surely a super team will come around and ruin it. But for now, I'm really enjoying the parody. Also, got my Christian Yelich jersey on today after the walk-off grand slam yesterday. Go Christian. Here's a look at our schedules for the next 3 weeks. I don't really think there's anything crazy noteworthy here, but there it is if you want to take a look. So yeah, I think that's everything, and I'll catch you next time.